Welcome back to the Producer Podcast Highlights. I'm your host, Micah Versman, and today we're diving back into Season 4 of the show as we sit down with our guest to talk about the aspect of networking in the film industry. So without further ado, let's get started. Up first, we're excited to welcome back Micah Gerber.
Yeah, networking. Networking is coming to people where they're at and building relationship. Coffee. I don't like coffee. I drink tea, but like taking people out to coffee, and it can be weird and awkward, but I think making people special in whatever that is. And sometimes that's a phone call. So if they're somewhere in LA and I'm in Indiana, we're not going to get coffee probably. If they're in Indiana, making them fully aware, like, hey, yo, let's get coffee.
Yeah.
But I think that's really how you do anything, is making intentional one-on-one. You can do group networking where it's a group of people, but you just never know whether the person's actually engaging. I think of that there's like networking mix and mingles sometimes for filmmakers. And I've gone to them and I'm like, okay, I feel like I walked away with very little, except for maybe like one-on-one conversation that I had with someone for a half an hour. Like, what's your exposure? So who are you exposing yourself to that is in your field? But also understanding that there could be people that you have no idea are going to be your next big, insightful person in your life. So I just am like, man, if you want to take me out to coffee, or if you seem even moderately interesting. I actually had somebody this past week who I thought was not interesting at all. And honestly, I did not want to get coffee with them at all. And they know this. I'm like, I didn't want to get coffee with this person. I'm like, you do not seem like an interesting person. We have nothing in common. And then we sat down and I was like, okay, tell me your story. Which is always ask people, because then it just starts well. So tell me your story.
Mm-hmm.
And he started talking, and I found out that he's a marketing specialist, and the guy is literally brilliant. Not that I didn't expect him to be brilliant, but he's literally brilliant in the area of marketing, sales, has this broad knowledge base, and can totally be valuable in, so many ways. But I almost just discounted it. Just don't ever discount having one-on-one and trying to make it one-on-one, because one-on-one makes people feel good. Group scenarios of having, half a dozen people, it just doesn't actually create and foster a network. Group chats don't build relationships. One-on-one conversations build relationships. So, I think that's probably where I'd say, really focus on your one-on-one. Don't forget people as much as you can. Some people you're not going to talk to for a long time, but if possible, though I will say this, if you haven't talked to someone in a long time, give them warning you're going to call them, or set a time. I think for producers specifically, most of us want warning before we get called or something like that. I think most humans, some people really like spontaneous phone calls and stuff, but I think just planning calls, planning on times to just connect. And even if you have to think up really silly ideas, I guess, to figure out how to connect. Figure out what that connection is and figure out how to, pull those people together, because I think it's just so much of we just forget about it. And that's where we run into trouble, is we forget to network. Or we think people are below us. Like, why would I connect with this PA, production assistant? Or why would I connect with this makeup artist or whatever? I think so much of producing is hearing people's voices. Don't look, I guess don't look down on anyone. Down on anyone, but also don't look past anyone. Try to connect, try to be social, and just reach. How far is your reach? How can you reach as many people as possible? And just know about them, know facts. And always have more than one of a crew type. That's completely random fact, but as a producer, make sure you have more than one of a crew type, because you just never know when someone's going to call you and be like, I need 6 grips. Oh no, I only know 1. Or I need 6 PAs. I only know 2. Why do I,
Yes.
I need 6 makeup artists. I only know 1. I don't know why you'd need 6 makeup artists, but like you just never know. And so having a lot of different people in even different price ranges, I have a list like that of like people I know where their price range is for getting crew, and just knowing that kind of stuff is very helpful. I think producers are connectors. We're connecting the dot, or we're connecting people to people to people. And if you're not doing
Yes.
that, you're kind of not being an effective producer. So like how can you make sure everybody's getting work? And so knowing what people cost, knowing how much they cost to work, knowing their experience is important, knowing their story. So some people, it really matters faith background. Some people not as much. But just like knowing what I can recommend people for is really important in networking. Because even if I'm, people hear about it. They're like, well, how did you hear that I'm a gaffer? Or how did you hear that I'm a PA? Oh, Micah Gerber recommended me? Okay. Now you have this, all right, now we've got this relationship here. Oh, now I guess I had a better relationship with this person than I thought I did. Kind of deal. And you just never know where that's going to go. So that's my sage wisdom from many mistakes.
And joining us now, we have Jared O'Flaherty.
Yeah, so there are a few well-run film festivals that I go to, and I always meet people at those. And I've never come back and said, "Oh, that was a waste of time." Nothing happened. So obviously, being online and in the social media networks, you can learn that. Here's a big one. Okay, I do have an answer for you. This is good. All right.
All right.
Here is how you can network. Here's how, as a producer, you can find those people. Is don't be a fan of only your work. Be a fan of what other people are doing. Support them. Watch their shows. Watch their trailers. Get behind their productions. It may not be monetary. It may just be liking stuff that comes up online and leaving them an encouraging word. But if you're a fan of other people's productions, you're not just focused on everybody, look at mine, mine's the best, this is what you need to be paying attention to, but you focus on other works. Who are the others out there that are doing things? You'll also meet the quality people that are working with them on the crew, grip, makeup, hair, sound, whatever it may be. You'll network that way because you'll get to know these people by supporting them.
And next up, we'll hear from Hunter Starnes of Take 4 Films.
I'm horrible at networking. I always feel a little strange when I go to networking events, and I do much better when I have one-on-one time with people. So I will find somebody on Instagram and I see their work, and if they're a local filmmaker, I will reach out to them and just be like, hey, I love your work, and follow them, and then eventually just be like, hey, do you want to grab some coffee? Or, ask them questions. A lot of people love to answer questions. you know, for wedding filmmakers, when you're just starting out, they would be good to start out with. And also try to be there for them. A lot of wedding filmmakers will try to find second shooters, and second shooters are really hard to find. Good second shooters are hard to find. Responsible second shooters are hard to find. So go out there and offer to like second shoot for them. You know, especially when you're first starting out, it's a good way to build up your knowledge and your skills without just jumping in and, you know, trying to figure it out. So reach out to filmmakers who you respect, ask to like meet up with them for coffee or something, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And then do the same with other wedding pros, photographers, wedding planners. Whatever you do, make sure that it feels natural and doesn't feel fake, because people can really feel that when it's fake. Now, don't let that deter you from trying new things. You know, go to networking events. Sure, try that works for some people. Try to do one-on-one like coffee meetings or breakfast meetings with people. And then also just reach out on Instagram and, be a fan of some of the people that, you know, of the work they like, and be authentic and be yourself. Don't be afraid to ask questions. So that's really the only advice I have. That's the way I try to do things, is try to keep things one-on-one, personable, and making sure that it doesn't feel fake and forced, which oftentimes networking events can feel that way. But I've also met some cool people at networking events too, and gotten work from networking events. So, you know, everybody's different. So finding out what your strengths are your strengths, being with a crowd of people and like moving among a crowd and getting to know lots of people that way? Or is your strength more one-on-one quality time with people? Mine is one-on-one quality time. And so I don't do very well in groups. So, find your strengths, know yourself, and work to those strengths.
Up next, we'll hear from Stephen Kendrick with his thoughts on networking.
Be faithful at the smallest level, and word will spread that you treat people right. You can't earn a reputation overnight of long-term integrity. It is built contact by contact, conversation by conversation, relationship by relationship. And if you are faithful, it will snowball. You know, we still have impact from Flywheel that's helping us today. You know, after all these years, there's still relationships that were founded with Facing the Giants that, you know, Bob Scott shot Facing the Giants. And that's where we met him. And he also shot the movie that we shot in the spring. Mm-hmm. You know, we still have a great relationship with so many people, and they spread the word, and they're pulling good people to help us. But we've also seen it where we've got friends that are like, I got burned on that movie. I'm not working with those guys again. You know, or I don't want to work with that producer. He's shady, or, you know, they just don't treat you well, or they don't pay well, or they don't, whatever it is. And so be willing to serve. Know that on the front end, you're going to have to work a whole lot harder to learn and get the ball rolling. And it's just part of that sacrifice, but it will begin to help you if you build a reputation of integrity and faithfulness. And so, and then I'd pray for favor. I'd ask God to connect you with the right people. Be willing to work on a lower position on another set under another producer that you want to learn from. You know, read books from great producers, but the stuff that I've read has only nominally been helpful because it's from secular producers. And I'm like, these guys are twisted, you know, with a lot of stuff that they do.
Yeah.
and they're twisted in how they manipulate people sometimes and deceive them to get what they want. And they're telling you how to take advantage of people in some of the books, and then the finished product I'm not respecting either. And I'm just like, why do I want to sit at the feet of this guy? He's so, and really study the life of Jesus. Jesus is the master of everything, including leading people well and getting things done. And so I would, I'd pray for favor, be willing to volunteer and serve. And that's really it. If you show up and are willing to do any position, I know guys that are producers, are competent producers, and they have come and helped us and taken non-producer roles to work with us. And they worked really hard being a locations manager or being over the sound department or whatever. And I knew that they had the capacity to produce, but they would pick our brains in between, and they're developing relationships on the set and treating people with kindness. And then when they go jump on their next film, they call a lot of those people they're working with saying, hey, you want to come help me? And they would. So, but if you make promises, work hard to keep them. Keep your word as best as you can, and apologize when you blow it, and but guard your reputation, because it says in Proverbs, a good name is rather to be chosen than great riches. So be willing to take a financial hit in order to protect your reputation. Be willing to take flack from people that are inconvenienced by you making something harder because you're honoring your reputation. Be willing to apologize, and be willing to not have to take the credit for everything. A lot insecure producers, their insecurities translate into how they operate every day. And they're easily offended. They're paranoid that somebody else is going to outshine them. They're jealous of other people that do well and succeed around them. They're not willing to take responsibilities when they blow it. And they feel like they have to get credit for everything. And man, it's like a 4-year-old sometimes, the way you see people that they want the entire universe to orbit around them. And I'm saying, find your identity in Christ, learn who God created you to be, and rest in that. And if you're the leader and you're driving the ship, take responsibility for the ship. And if the ship's going off track, regardless of why, you take responsibility for it. You right the ship and you apologize and you say, this is on my watch and we're going to fix this. And sometimes that's rebuking a person on the crew that's screwing up, and sometimes that's firing them. But when you find any kind of level of success, don't take credit for it like it's all because of you. Because when you watch the credits, if you're doing every position and every role, then yes, you can take credit for it. But if you were only one of 500 names, remember those other 499 people and give them credit for blood, sweat, and tears that they shed to help you fulfill your vision, and express gratefulness for all that they've done to help you. And to me, that's fun. I love giving people credit for stuff that they do. I love bragging on them and telling them you're amazing and what a great job you did. And so grateful to have you on my team, and I admire their work and delight in who they are and who God's made them to be. And then they have fun and you have fun too.
And to wrap up this episode of the Producer Podcast Highlights, we're excited to be joined by Joshua Walsh to hear his thoughts on networking.
Well, it's everything. So, I think it's so important. It's one of those cliches that's just true. The best version of that to be is someone that knows how to connect with people, but then can deliver. I've met great networkers who can't deliver, and ultimately they become not so good networkers. I remember there's a lot of characters in film and that will tell you about everybody they know. That's a cliche. They'll name drop. And I remember being so impressed. I'm less impressed now about who someone knows. And I'm more impressed with people that have good relationships because they over time have delivered and they have built equity in those relationships. I'm more impressed by that. I'm more impressed by someone who's worked with the same investor for 5 or 10 years than I am someone who's always good at raising money. I'm more impressed with someone who's worked longer with the studio than someone who's jumped around to a bunch of different people or had a bunch of different gigs, so, but I would say that you cannot underestimate how important that is. It's everything. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me getting connected to John Irwin, and Andy Irwin, and the how important that relationship is. I think if you have integrity, is so key, to building long-term relationships. But that's another talk for another time. The importance of relationships is so important. I would say it's there are people that have skill but are terrible at connecting with people, and they are not successful. And there are people that are better connectors and don't have as much skill, and they're more successful. So I would say the best thing is to be really good at what you do and work really hard at being relational, because it's a relational business. So absolutely, it's super important.
And with that, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Producer Podcast Highlights. Stay tuned for more Producer Podcast highlights coming soon, as well as news on the next season of the show. Until then, make sure to subscribe to the Producer Podcast, and thanks for listening.